In today's episode we are going to shower my engine bay in coolant and swear a lot.
Allee. So today is going to be all about the Golf Mk1. I had some issues with it lately. Some of you might have seen on my Instagram that I got broken down on the side of the road. And here is what happened. So I was driving the car around, just going for a spin to enjoy it in the nice weather, when suddenly something popped on the engine and the car started smoking profusely. I immediately pulled over, turned off the car, and then got my fire extinguisher. I was really afraid that it was going to catch fire because it was also smelling really bad. But then when I opened the hood, I saw that it was just a coolant leak. So this is what happened.
One of the pipes coming out of the radiator broke off, which resulted in an explosion of coolant in my engine bay. As you can see, the other piece is still sitting inside of the hose. I'm not really sure what happened, but my guess is that I over-tightened the hose clamp, which put too much stress on the plastic piece.
So after I saw what happened, I called my girlfriend and she came over with some tools and coolant. So I filled up the radiator again, popped the hose on, and then just drove home. But the radiator being broken means that it needs to be replaced, and that is what we are going to do first today.
The weather is starting to get better and better, so I can't wait to drive the Golf again. Also, I need to be driving the car around more to figure out some of the shortcomings the car currently has, because it needs to be perfect when we go on our Nürburgring adventure. So the sooner it is fixed, the better. The current radiator is not going to be salvageable, so I sourced a replacement. I got a second-hand one for dirt cheap, because after all, we're doing these things on a budget, and it looks to be in fairly good condition. I don't know what model VW this is from, but it is way wider and way thicker, so I'm pretty confident it will benefit the engine cooling. Before we can start taking stuff out, the coolant needs to be drained from the radiator and the engine. After I've made a mess in my driveway, the old radiator can come out. Since everything is disconnected, I flushed everything out with my garden hose, which cleaned out a lot of the goo. Later that night I got joined by my friends Thibaut and Jasper to help me figure out the new setup. Thibaut drives a beautiful red Mk1 Jetta that is very similar to the one that we saw in the Will It Start episode, but the diehards will notice that this is a coupe and not a 5 doors. Behind it is Jasper's Mark II Jetta that he bought a few weeks ago and got an insane deal on. Both of these cars will be joining us on our Nürburgring adventure. We worked into the night to figure out what would fit and what would need modification. The radiator looked like it would need some custom brackets, but otherwise it fits like a glove. Since the new radiator doesn't have a cap directly on top of it, I am going to need to fit an expansion tank, which I already have laying around. This also means that I need to buy some new hoses, but overall the job looks fairly straightforward. The next day I started making the brackets with the same sheet metal that I used for the BMW E28's rust holes. After some drilling and bending, the brackets are done. They are not perfect, but they are good enough for me. Then I'm disassembling everything from the radiator to clean it up. While that was drying, I also needed to make a bracket for the expansion tank because currently my engine bay doesn't support one. I made another bracket so that I could suspend the tank from my strut bar. That way I can avoid making holes in my engine bay. Now the radiator assembly can be put back together again and installed in the car. Now the system can be filled up with coolant. If you want a pro tip from me, don't yeet your coolant in too fast when you don't have a proper funnel.
Allee.
The last step we need to do is start the car so the system can bleed out all the air, And once that is done, the radiator swap is complete.
So now that the cooling system is handled, we can get working on what to me is the exciting part of this episode. In one of the past episodes I told you guys that we would need to do a brake upgrade on my Golf, because on the Nürburgring I had some issues with brake fading, which didn't really give me confidence in the car. In the front the car has solid rotors and in the back it has drum brakes. So I was thinking about doing an entire brake disc swap with having ventilated discs in the front and solid discs in the rear. But that would be kind of a headache, because I would have to change the brake pressure in the rear, because otherwise they would lock up really bad and that's really dangerous. So that got me thinking, and then I saw that the Golf Mk1 GTI has the same calipers in the front as me and also has the same drums in the back. But the only difference is that they have ventilated discs in the front, I believe. So that is why I bought these.
What you see here are grooved and ventilated brake discs. They are the same diameter as my standard brake rotors, but they are slightly thicker, being 20 mm wide. This means that the only thing that needs to be changed is the thickness of the brake pads to compensate for the wider discs. I opted for EBC green stuff pads as an upgrade from a generic option. They are advertised as ideal pads for lighter vehicles that occasionally do a track day, so that is exactly what I need. I also considered yellow stuff pads, but I was afraid that I couldn't get them up to temperature when driving daily. So let's throw them on, because I'm really curious about how they will look. The stock discs have been on there for more than 8 years, and I have to admit that it could be worse. The edge isn't that worn in and there is plenty of meat on the discs. I replaced the pads a year ago and they look like they can last for another half a century. Very economical, but not really desirable if you want some performance out of your braking system. So everything has to come off. Before I mount the caliper, I'm greasing up the sliders again because they felt really tight when I was unbolting them. Then I put some copper compound on the bracket for the pads before installing it on the hub. I'm not really a fan of the bright green look, but I think it might not be very noticeable with the wheels installed. It was impossible to press the caliper over the pads and disc because the rubber shim on the pad kept peeling back. Even with the piston pushed back all the way, it was impossible, so I decided to peel off one of the rubber shims. I think these are only there for noise purposes, but I might be wrong. Feel free to let me know in the comments if this might kill me. It would be much appreciated. I'm really pleased with how everything looks. If they will work as well as they look, I will be a very happy camper. Now it's a matter of doing the same thing on the other side, and then the car can be lowered again. To my surprise, the monster green pads are not really that noticeable from the outside, so that's a big relief. No need to start painting the pads, I guess. Now let's take her for a spin to see if our work has paid off.
So I've been driving the car around for about 15 minutes and the gauge for the coolant temperature is smack bang in the middle, so I think the cooling system is handled, and I must say I have the impression that it runs a lot cooler than it did before, which is normal I guess because the radiator has a lot more capacity than my old one. For the brakes, I can't really test them because they have to be bed in for a couple of kilometers. I think the packaging of the EBC brakes said that I need to drive 500 kilometers without braking hard to really get the top coating of the pads. Driving this car around for the next few weeks isn't really a problem because I kind of want to see if there are other problems that might surface, because I don't want those happening when we go on our Nürburgring adventure. So yeah, I guess this is where we are going to end this video. I'm sorry it took so long to upload. I've been really busy, but I'm going to try to upload more on a weekly basis during the summer. And there is a lot of stuff to come for this car, so keep an eye on the channel, and otherwise, thank you for watching, and until next time.